95% of the water used in Northwest Indiana is sourced from Lake Michigan. 59% of that water is used for industrial purposes. 37% of that water is used in energy production. And only 4% of that water is consumed by the public. Simply put, water not only keeps us alive, but it keeps Northwest Indiana's economic engine humming as well. So the topic of today's forum, the thirst for clean water, embraces the breadth of this conversation. People thirst, the environment thirsts, industry thirsts, the economy thirsts. As Nobel Prize recipient Albert Szent-Györgyi famously said, water is life's mater and matrix, mother and medium. There is no life without water. And it's true that there's a veritable matrix of ways to look at the clean water conundrum. So many parts of contaminated water versus parts clean. So many parts accessible to those who can pay versus so many parts for those without sufficient funds. So many parts wasted through careless use at home or in industry versus so many parts treasured drop by drop. So many parts for those with a political voice and so many parts for those with no voice. We can slice this water discussion a lot of ways, and we must slice it in so many ways because of the impact of clean water, or the lack of it, affects every person in every sector. It is as complex as the physiological, political, economic, biochemical, and moral and ethical dynamics of the ecosystem that we live in. And it's a discussion both urgent and critical. Even a few weeks ago, the United Nations celebrated World Water Day to bring attention to the issue of clean water worldwide. In fact, the UN has declared access to safe and clean water as a basic human right. The subject is bigger than any one entity is going to be able to solve because economy, ecology, science, and social justice are expansive, interdependent, and interwoven. So I find it heartening that this forum brings together experts from so many diverse fields and tackles this subject from so many diverse perspectives. This forum exemplifies the mission of Valparaiso University: to pursue truth wherever it leads, to grapple with complex issues, with a belief that together we will be able to illuminate solutions that will serve people well. And so I want to express my thanks first to Professor Julie Peller and to all those who've been involved in organizing this event. We're also so fortunate, I met him a few minutes ago, I'm trying to figure out where he is here, Professor Mark Edwards, here straight in the back here. We're so pleased that Professor Mark Edwards is joining us today as our keynote speaker, and as you know, Professor Edwards is a trailblazer in this intersection of water and social justice. And among his many accolades, he received an IEEE Barris Award for courageously defending the public interest at great personal risk. Professor Edwards, you really live out the model of this university and what you do. We are proud and privileged to have you here with us, and I am grateful for the courage that you exemplify in the interests of social justice and in the pursuit of truth. So thank you for being with us today. I also want to thank the Abrams Environmental Law Clinic at the University of Chicago and to Robert Weinstock for your participation, which I hope will lay the foundation for future collaboration between our institutions. And in particular, I want to show my personal appreciation to Walt Breidinger. So Walt, we want to thank you because you are the person that has really carried the water on this one for quite a while. You have a vision for bringing this community together around this topic, and I hope you'll just take a moment and join me in thanking Walt for his leadership. So thank you. We're also fortunate to have guests here today from the University of Notre Dame, from Virginia Tech, from Purdue University, as well as, of course, our faculty, staff, and students here at Valpo. I also want to welcome our colleagues in the non-for-profit community here, Save the Dunes, Hoosier Environmental Council, the local chapter of the Isaac Walton League, the Ogden Dunes Environmental Advisory Council, and Faith CDC. We are blessed by your work in this community and region and your unique perspectives. And I also want to take a minute and point out all of the folks that are listed here on these slides. These are our financial sponsors that made today possible, and I'd like to take a moment and have us all recognize them and thank them for their financial support. So thank you. And of course, there are members of this community, this larger Northwest Indiana region, who want to come together for an important day of dialogue, and for you, I am also grateful that you take this half a day and spend time together on this very important topic. Each of you, speakers, panelists, excel in your own fields and break new ground. Together, I believe that the possibilities for raising awareness in this region and in seeding social change are limitless when we come together. So may these ideas today flow freely and refreshingly as that cool glass of water that we take for granted, poured from our tap. And may this forum provide a vital space for learning, for dialogue, and a launching pad for collaborative efforts moving forward. Thank you for being here today, and blessings on your gathering. Thank you.
Okay, this podium's a little small for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and probably get it out of the way and start off our first panel discussion for the day. Okay. Hello and welcome to everyone and all of our panelists. Thank you for coming to today's symposium on clean water, especially as it applies to our communities here in Northwest Indiana and around the Great Lakes region. I'd like to thank President Heckler and Valparaiso University for making this possible, and as well our numerous sponsors and donors, without whom we would not be able to have such a wonderful event. I was just asked also, because we will be having some folks coming in throughout the sessions today, if we could try and kind of scooch in so that as they come in they can not be disturbing anybody and make it into the sides if that's possible. So I'm going to be your first moderator for today. My name is Chris Eisman. I'm from the chemistry department here at Valparaiso University. And today our first session will be a panel that addresses in particular surface waters and legislation monitoring, or lack thereof, of those surface waters and protecting those waters for all of us. Our panelists are of great esteem, and I'm honored to introduce them to you now. So I'm going to give you an introduction to them all at the beginning. That way I can kind of disappear into the background and let them go. So our first panelist is Rob Weinstock from the Abrams Environmental Clinic at the University of Chicago. I had the pleasure of meeting Rob over the phone this week, and I'm happy that he's joining us today to talk about our Clean Water Act. I'm very impressed by Rob's bio, which you can all read on the website, in his vitae that displays his dedication to mentees at the Abrams Environmental Law Clinic, helping them on the path to understanding litigation which concerns our environment and each other. Our second panelist is Aaron Korn, who I've come to know over the past few months as he's recently taken on his new role at the Hoosier Environmental Council. Aaron has a real passion for the peoples in Northwest Indiana, which is demonstrated in his diligent work in our communities, especially with regards to farming infrastructure and its effects on our environment and waters, which he will discuss today. Our third panelist is Julie Peller, professor of chemistry here at Valparaiso University. And I could go on about Julie and her accolades, being that I have an office right across from hers. But suffice to say, Julie really cares about using her science to help people in her community. Julie's continued to receive national funding to investigate the waters in and around Lake Michigan. And we'll talk today about scientific monitoring of these waterways and their shortfalls. And our final panelist will be Dr. Graham Teasley, professor of physics at Notre Dame, who I've had the pleasure of working with for about a year or so now. Graham is a wonderful and inspiring individual who has an extensive career demonstrating how he cares for communities through his science, which spans toxic metals, and organic pollutants in places like our natural waterways as well as fast food wrappers. Graham will speak to us today about his recent work investigating polyfluorinated compounds in water systems. So without further ado, I'm going to have our first speaker, Rob Weinstock, begin. I'd like to remind you all that we have index cards placed around the room and little pencils if you'd like to write down a question during the panel. I'm going to kind of be circulating around the periphery and picking those up, so if you could kind of slide them out to the edge if you have a question. I'll collect them, try to topically organize them, and then we can ask those questions. I'll relay them to the panelists at the end. Let's show respect to our panelists by giving them some good questions, and hopefully we can show them how much we appreciate their time at the end. I think we'll have 12 or 15 minutes or so, so I'll put my big mid up when you're down to about 3, and you can know where you're at. And without further ado, let's let Rob talk. Yeah.
How's that? Great, maybe I'll just hold on to it. So in 12 to 15 minutes, I'm going to try to introduce everyone to the Federal Clean Water Act. And really what I'm focused on is some of the shortcomings and loopholes in that act that cause problems in its implementation today, over 45 years after it was enacted. So as Chris mentioned, I work at the Abrams Environmental Law Clinic at the University of Chicago Law School, where we work on a wide range of energy and environmental litigation and policy projects, including a significant docket of Clean Water Act litigation and other water policy projects. So today my objective is to, again, introduce you to the Clean Water Act, specifically thinking about the fundamental prohibition on water pollution that is at its core. Thanks, Chris. And the way it's implemented through the permitting process and enforcement, and again, pointing out some loopholes, and I'm going to wind up with